Hi, everybody. This is Marsha Blackburn, and thank you for picking up the phone and getting on with us. I am absolutely thrilled to spend a few minutes with you this evening. This is a telephone town hall. Many of you have probably been a participant in one of these telephone town halls in the past, and you're going to be on the phone with thousands of your friends and neighbors in our 19 counties in our 7th Congressional District. If you've got a question for me that you want to ask, hit star 3. That will put you in the queue to ask the question, and one of our staff members will pick the line up and will get you into the queue to ask that question. Also, if you are on a mobile device, you're going to be able to text that question to us also, and it will come in to me, and we'll get to it. If you are on the phone with us and you just have a question on a casework issue, there are two phone numbers I want to give you. One is our Franklin office, which is right there on the courthouse square in Franklin. That number is 615-591-5161, 615-591-5161. And in Clarksville, that office number is 931-503-0391. And they will put you in for casework issues, or if you want to sign up for the weekly newsletter that I do on every Friday, feel free to do that. You can go to our website if you have things that you would like to send to us, and that website is blackburn.house.gov, blackburn.house.gov. You'll also find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, so I do hope that you will stay in touch with us. Again, if you have a question and you want to ask the question, hit star 3, and that will put you in the queue to ask a question, and one of our staff members will pick the phone up. We are in D.C. tonight. We've just finished voting on the floor this afternoon, and we took a vote on an issue that I know is important to many of you, and that is this issue of the illegal aliens and the sanctuary cities. And many of you know I've had a bill, the CLEAR Act, that has been in the process for quite a period of time. That is not the bill we voted on today, but some of the provisions of the CLEAR Act were included in another one. Duncan Hunter, who is a member of the House, a conservative member from Southern California, lives in San Diego. We took action on his sanctuary city bill. It passed the House and is now on its way to the Senate. We hope that they are going to join us in finally dealing with this issue of the criminal illegal aliens and the sanctuary cities. It's absolutely appalling that we have nearly 300 sanctuary cities and counties in this country right now, 300. And these are individuals that are choosing to disobey, or it is cities that are choosing to disobey and circumvent federal law when it comes to immigration. And the bill we passed today would require these cities to work with ICE to send notice when they have a criminal illegal alien and to abide by federal immigration law. So we were pleased to get that off the floor. Again, to ask a question, hit star 3. They're going to put you into the queue to ask a question. 3 other issues I want to touch on. Number 1, the Chattanooga shootings. I think all of us were just shocked and horrified with what transpired in Chattanooga last Thursday, and our hearts go out to that community and to the families of the 5 members of the military who lost their life. We have moved forward quickly to continue work on an issue we started working on after the Fort Hood shootings, and that is to have the Pentagon and DOD to agree to allow those members in uniform to carry a firearm. And we hope that by the time we finish next week, and head for our August work period in our district offices, that we'll be able to say that issue has been resolved. So we are continuing to work on that and on the issue dealing with terrorism here on the homeland. We know from the FBI that terrorist cells are located all across this country, and I think so many people now are feeling as if attacks of this nature can occur anywhere, anytime. Um, the Iran deal. Many of you have written us. I've had a load of emails this week on the Iran deal. And yes, I have been to what we call the SCIF and have read the documents on that. And I am not for this. I think there are several danger points that are in it, lifting the sanctions, lifting the arms embargo, the allowance of ballistic missiles, the continuation of 5,060 centrifuges, the continuation of the enrichment of uranium. I am hard-pressed to see where it's going to be a benefit to us. So this is a deal that I do not support. And after reading all the classified material, it confirmed to me that a no vote was the right vote. Planned Parenthood and the atrocious, horrific videos that have come to light. Some of us saw these about a month ago and started the process of working toward hearings. My committee, Energy and Commerce, will handle these hearings. We should begin those by the 1st of September. We have already contacted Planned Parenthood to ask them to come and talk with us on this issue. We also have a letter that I have led, and 101 members of Congress have signed with me. This is to the Department of Justice to ask if they will investigate Planned Parenthood under the Interstate Commerce Clause for the selling of body parts, baby body parts. That is an illegal activity to sell those across state lines. And we are going to continue these investigations. I hope you'll follow our website and Facebook, Twitter, and we will keep you posted as we move forward with those. We also are working toward restricting the funding, freezing the funding that would go to Planned Parenthood. They do get about $500 million of taxpayer money every year, and we are working toward that restriction. Again, *3 if you would like to ask a question. And we've got a poll up, and I'll give you the results from the poll. We have, I want to hear from you on the Iran nuclear deal. Press 1 if you support it. That would be yes. If you support it, press 1. If you are against the Iran nuclear deal, please press 2 on your phone. And I'll give you the poll results after we've had this out for you all for a few minutes. The Iran nuclear deal, yes, you press 1. No, press 2. And we will give you those results in just a few minutes. And again, *3 to ask a question on a mobile device. You can also text. And let's see. Let's see. I'm going. It looks like Ms. Putman from Lawrenceburg. Ms. Putman, I've opened your line. Go ahead with your question. Hello?
It's the wrong person.
Okay. Well, why don't you go ahead? I've got your line open, so go ahead with your question.
Well, like I said earlier, the main question I've got as far as this ISIS and stuff and everything that happened down there and at the church and stuff like that, the people got killed down there, and they're wanting to remove the rebel flag from every state in the South. I don't believe in that because it's not. I mean, it's heritage. There's no disrespect involved in it, and I don't understand it. I don't know why all these states are willing to do that.
Mhm.
That is one thing. And another thing is all of these people that are coming over here and doing crimes and everything from Mexico and stuff, and all they're doing is just send them back. All right, then they end up back over here within a few months and do the same thing over again, and there's nothing being done about it.
Well, and thank you for the question. That is one of the reasons we took the vote on the House floor today, and I thank you for that question dealing with those criminal illegal aliens. And my legislation, as I mentioned earlier, has been the CLEAR Act, which requires ICE to come and deport those criminal illegal aliens and also to reimburse the cities. The action we took today would withhold the money from those sanctuary cities and require ICE to pick up these individuals and deport them. You know, we were talking about the crime rate earlier today when we were working on this legislation. We were talking about the crime rate in this country with illegal aliens. And when you look at just the state of Texas, over from 2008 to 2014, they had over 600,000 crimes that were committed by illegal aliens and right under 3,000 murders that were committed by illegal aliens. And this is one of the reasons that people in our district are just so against having illegal aliens and having these sanctuary cities. The crime rate in this population should be zero because they should not be here. They have illegally entered the country. Okay, Sherry, I'm opening your line, so please go ahead with your question.
All right, I have two questions. One is about the nuclear program and one about the immigration, since I am a legal immigrant myself. The question that I have for you is your stand on what I just learned on Fox News, that with this particular agreement with Iran, we have to protect their nuclear program against others. Which means, like if Israel would do something in order to protect themselves, we now would have to protect the Iranian nuclear facilities with this treaty, which is absolutely ridiculous. Now, have you read that part already, or did you not dive that far into it?
Yeah, what I said earlier was I had gone to the SCIF this morning, and yes, I've been able to go through all the components of this. And yesterday morning, some of my conservative colleagues and I had a breakfast meeting with the Israeli ambassador to the U.S., and we are tremendously concerned about the lack of transparency and the way this deal is constructed. We feel as if this is something that is not going to give the U.S. the amount of insight into what Iran is doing with their program, and we feel as if it is something that could generate an arms race in the Mideast. Because if Iran gets a nuclear weapon, you know, Saudi Arabia has already said they're going to have one. Israel's going to have to defend themselves. And so we are very much opposed to this agreement. You had one more question. Go ahead with that, and then I'll move on through the queue.
Yes. Like I said, I am an immigrant from Germany. I came here in 1977. In order for me to come into this country, I had to sign a statement that should I no longer be able to sustain myself before I go onto welfare, I would have to leave the country. If I would do anything illegal, if I would have any kind of criminal records, that I would be willingly returning to Germany, paying my own way to do so.
Right.
I had to show the U.S. government that I'm bringing a certain amount of money with me so that I can sustain myself and use some of the money to return back to Germany if there's a problem. Why on earth are those rules no longer the proper rules? Why do we allow everybody else to do whatever they want to do? Why do I, after signing those statements, have to pay for these illegals' bills? Why do I have to pay to the government so that the government can go to all these South American countries and bring the children in and reunite them with the illegals that are already here? After, back in 1977, I had to sign all those documents. Something is so wrong.
Yes, and I agree with you. Thank you for that. Thank you also for doing everything right. I appreciate so much your perspective and hearing from you, but you're exactly right. Illegal immigration is something that should not be allowed to continue, just like the sanctuary cities. The first sanctuary city was Los Angeles, and it was in 1979. And I agree with you that this should not be able to stand. This is why I had my legislation that the House passed not once but twice, and the Senate could not pass it, and it was dealing with the DACA program. You mentioned the children that were coming across the border. It would have ended and defunded that, would have frozen it. And the House got bipartisan support on my bill last summer, and then again this at the end of the year in December, to make certain that we ended this. And we are hopeful that the Senate will agree with us. We are hopeful they will take up this bill and pass the bill and help us send it to the President's desk to deal with these sanctuary cities and require them to abide by the federal law. You are right. It is something that should not go on. It has gone on now since the 70s, and it is time to end it, and that is why we in the House continue to bring some bills forward and try to deal with it. Okay, let's see. Alicia, you're next in the queue, and your line is open.
Okay, thank you. Well, first of all, I'm not trying to flatter you, but I'm so impressed with the work that you do, and my question is, I mean, I have loads of questions, but a lot of people have already asked you that. But being a senior citizen, I'm very concerned, of course, about the future of Social Security and Medicare. And I was wondering, what the Republican Party is going to do to protect that for the senior citizens who've worked hard, of course, to put their money into Social Security during your lifetime.
Right, exactly. And thank you for the question. I will tell you this, Alicia. I was looking at some polling the other day. The top three issues looking at the presidential election, the 2016 elections, this polling said the top three issues were national security, job and economic security, and retirement security. So your question is spot on, is one we get a lot. A couple of things that I support that are specific to Medicare and Social Security. First of all, seniors and near seniors should not see any changes. Younger workers like my kids that are out in the workforce, there's going to have to be some changes in order for the program to be around. What we have to realize is with Medicare and Social Security, those are not entitlements. Those are trust funds. The federal government has first right of refusal on your paycheck. They take their money out for those programs. When you retire, you deserve to be able to get every penny plus interest back. And that is what we are seeking to protect, to stabilize it for seniors and near seniors, and then to make some changes in it so that it will be solvent and be there for our children and grandkids when they are ready to call on and to use those programs. Now, we are in our Budget Committee and in our Ways and Means Committee beginning to look at some of the changes for this, more options for seniors when it comes to Medicare. I hear in my town halls all the time that y'all love Medicare Advantage programs and love having more options, and that is something that we certainly want to be sure is there. Allowance of new technologies and medical devices so that you have access to the best possible care, getting the cost of the Medicare insurance program down. Many of our Medicare constituents who are just turning 65 say, look, my insurance cost me more through Medicare than it did in my entire career working. And that's not lost on us. We know that you would like to see those costs come down. Okay, again, *3 to ask a question, and you all are on the phone with several thousand of your friends and neighbors around the 7th Congressional District. If you have a question on casework or want to get on the newsletter, the Franklin office is 615-591-5161, Clarksville 931-503-0391. You'll also find us on the website, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Now, the poll question. Here we go. Do you support the Iran nuclear deal? The answer of yes, 9%. No, against the Iran nuclear deal, 91%. So I thank you all for answering that. And in a few minutes, we're going to put up another poll question and give you the chance to come back to that. Okay, let me pick the pace up here. Barbara, you're next in the queue. Your line is open.
Yes, I was wanting to have you help me understand when executive orders are permissible, and how, what can Congress do to prevent the president from overusing executive orders to sidetrack or go around the Congress.
Yeah.
We seem like we sing a lot of that.
Oh, yes. We've never had a president do as many executive orders and memorandums as we have had with this administration. And certainly it is something that causes us concern. The way we deal with it is through the regular order process, and we have to call the agencies in for a hearing, and then we have to do something through law on the statute to address whatever has been put into place through these executive orders. Many of you who are in the small business manufacturing have mentioned to us time and again the EPA and their kind of overreach, and we know that is there. So the DACA program, the immigration program that we talked about earlier with the children coming across the border, that was an executive order. See, Congress had never taken an action on that. The president just did that program. But it meant we had to pass my bill not once but twice in order to be able to get in behind that program and send that message to the White House. So, we are continuing to do it. One of the things I said to some of my colleagues this week, I think we need to take 1 month every year and devote it strictly to repealing some of these bad laws and rules and regulations, clawing those back and getting them off the books. So, we're going to continue to work on that one. Thanks for the question. Rick, your line is open.
Thank you for taking my question. My question is around the side deals on the Iran deal, and I know Congress and yourself have requested to review those side deals, but it seems to me it's just impossible to have a vote of approval of the Iran deal not knowing what's in those side deals. It seems the deal is scary enough as is, and even more scary not knowing that information. And if I could, just really quickly, because I know your healthcare is near and dear to your heart, and I work in healthcare, with the new announcements of 2 mega mergers of insurance plans, we're going to be down to 3 insurance companies soon. So I hope the federal government's going to review those carefully, understanding we can't end up with just 3 large national insurers across the country. Thank you for taking my question.
Oh, thank you so much for calling in. And let me say a little bit about the Iran deal first. As I mentioned earlier, I had gone to the SCIF this morning to read the classified documents. there are some other things that have made their way into the media that we're concerned about. The agreement between the IAEA and Iran does cause us concern because that is something that no one has seen. The classified papers, I will tell you, gave me more questions than answers, and I agree with you. But, Rick, I will tell you this. When we come back in September from working in our district offices the month of August, we will have a vote. And quite frankly, I think the House and the Senate both are going to be a no on this, and I think there are enough votes to override the president's veto on that. So we're continuing to monitor that. It is something, as one of my constituents said to me this week, she said, I feel like my prayer list is covered with all of these issues, current events issues right now. The Iran deal, the Chattanooga shootings, what we had seen with Planned Parenthood, the burden of the debt on our children and grandchildren, concern over jobs, and those are things that, I think prayer helps us with those, and so it's something that does weigh on our hearts and our minds, and that we seek to get information on before we do cast those votes. Let me say something about the health insurance issues. We were quite concerned this year when we received notice from the insurance companies that health insurance costs would probably escalate about 30% in the individual marketplace. Indeed, it has escalated across the board, and 36% in most of the individual marketplace. Yes, we are quite concerned about what we see happening with that cost of insurance, the impact of the Obamacare mandates on the cost of that insurance. And the other component of this is we hear so much about what is happening with individuals that are put into these health care plans through the health exchange and get an Obamacare plan, and then they can't afford to use the insurance when they get it. And so this is of tremendous concern to us. And I have talked to so many constituents who have deductibles of $6,000 out-of-pocket expense, of another $1,200, $1,500 every year, and it is just too expensive to afford them. When they need a test, they have to go to the doctor and have to pay for that test before the doctor will administer the test if it is not something that is covered as as an essential benefit. So continuing to work on it. Okay, we've got another poll going up. Do you support empowering local law enforcement to apprehend and detain criminal illegal aliens? Punch 1 for yes and 2 for no. Do you support empowering local law enforcement to apprehend and detain criminal illegal aliens? If you agree with that, if your answer is yes, push 1, and if it is no, push 2. All right. Let me get back to the queue. All right, Don, you're next, and your line is open.
Yes, Congressman, I'm interested in your position on Kate's Law, the law regarding mandatory minimum sentences for illegal aliens with felony convictions who return to the United States after they've been deported.
The criminal illegal aliens. Oh, I'm for it. And this is something that ties into that group of issues. You've got Kate's Law, you've got the Sanctuary City Law, which Duncan Hunter's bill, which we took a vote on today, the CLEAR Act, which is my legislation, and then the SAFE Act, which is Trey Gowdy's, which embodies the CLEAR Act and also some other internal enforcement provisions. I have been active in working with my colleagues on these, and we are, like I said, the first bill we moved forward today, which is the Sanctuary City provisions, and then we're hopeful the Senate's going to take it up and support us in these efforts. Susan, your line is open.
yesterday about Social Security disability going broke at the end of next year.
That is
I haven't
correct.
heard much coverage on it, and didn't know what the plan was in Congress. If should disability go dry?
Well, yeah, and you not only have a disability going dry, the Social Security Trust Fund runs out of money in 2030. And if you go in and read the front page of the report from the Medicare and Social Security trustees reports, it sounds like something you would get on one of these emails where it's send money now, save Social Security and Medicare, because you can't believe that Social Security is belly up in 2030, disability is belly up next year, and by the time you get to 2020, you're going to have Medicare that is running out of money. That is why it is imperative that we make some of these changes and reforms and stabilize these trust funds, which I think Alicia was the constituent that had asked this question earlier, and it's why it's so important that we do these. We cannot continue to kick the can down the road on that. It is something that is not fair to our children and grandchildren, and so it's important that we continue to push to get some votes on that. We have passed a couple of things in the House dealing with those issues. You can go to the website and you will see those, and we'll hope that the Senate will work with us on it. Okay, Mary, your line is open. Mary? All right. Mary must not be there. All right. Let's close that one, and let's see. Ms. Burke? Okay. Your line is open. Yes. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm
Good.
fine, Miss Blackburn. I enjoy watching you on TV when I go in and I watch the House stuff on CSN.
Yes.
I enjoy it. You have a lot of backbone, and we appreciate you very much.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say and ask you a question, which most of my questions has been answered.
Good.
But I can't understand how, just like that little lady, that was from Germany.
Yes.
I don't see how has it changed? How could they change it from that, like it used to be, to Mexico? Just being to come over anytime they want to. And
Right.
I can't understand why our borders are not secured, because not only people from South America, but ISIS can come right in there anytime they want to, with all the tunnels and all the other things they have.
Yeah, and you brought up a great point on that. One of the things that we know and have so much anecdotal information on is the relationship between some of these trafficking organizations and groups in the Middle East or other parts of the world and coming across that southern border. And one of our constituents mentioned earlier the children that come across the border and my legislation that would block that. Now, let me tell you something. Last summer when I was working on all of this, I went down to the border, to the Texas border, and worked down there with the Border Patrol for a day, and I was in one of these reception areas where they bring individuals in. There were people from the Middle East. There were 2 girls from China. There were people from all over. They pay these coyotes to get them in because they say it's faster than going through legal immigration. But this is why, as I said earlier, our crime rate with illegal aliens should be 0. It should be 0. They should not be here, and they're committing. You had last year 74% of the federal drug offenses in this country were illegal aliens that are in this country, and that ought not to be. 24% of all federal crime, illegal aliens that are in this country. That ought not to be. So those that have come legally, yes, we are the country of the great American dream. And we want those that want to come here and abide by our laws and seek that dream, come here legally. But it is so wrong for people to be rewarded for coming here illegally, and that's why I'm so active in pushing this legislation that will stop it. Okay, our poll. Do you support empowering local law enforcement to apprehend and detain criminal illegal aliens? Yes, 96%. No, 4%. So that is the answer. Okay, let's see. Kathy, you're next in the queue, and your line is open.
Yes, ma'am. First off, I want to commend you. You rock. You stand up for all of us, and we need more people like you.
Well, thank you.
I am a Navy veteran. I served from 69 to 72, which means that I was in during the Vietnam War. And my heart goes out to those Marines who lost their lives recently in Chattanooga. And it goes out to their families. But my question is it refers to veterans, in particular female veterans, who have served our country and who have, like myself, have been had gone through military sexual trauma. And 90% of the time, when it's reported, it's brushed under the carpet. In other words, don't say anything. We don't want these boys to go over to that country and die because you said this about them.
Yeah.
I want to know if there is anything that can be done to help people like myself who have tried to do something about it, and we can't receive benefits because there's nothing in record.
Yes, we are working on that, and I have given out my local office numbers, and Kathy, I hope you will call me at one of those. I'll give those numbers again. Franklin, 615-591-5161. And with our female veterans, when it comes to access to benefits and care, absolutely, we are continuing to work. This is an issue that really came to the forefront probably about 18 months ago. We're continuing to work with the Department of Defense, the DOD, on these issues, how we deal with it, not only now, but as we address the needs of our veterans. I'll tell you right now, I don't think that we're where we want to be with getting the issue resolved. I do think that we have made some progress in this area, but we are going to continue to work on it, and I would love to visit with you about that when we can sit down and discuss it, or when I'm able to cross paths with you in your community. And thank you. God bless you for your service to our country. Okay, Jimmy, your line is open.
Yes, thank you for taking my call, Marsha.
Sure.
Appreciate all that you do for us.
Sure.
I actually have two questions I'd like to ask, if I could, quickly. The first is, I'm a pastor, and I want to know about our pastor's rights regarding the gay marriage law in the state of Tennessee now. Will I, as a pastor, at some point be arrested, or would I be breaking the law in refusing to perform a gay marriage at my church?
Right. And I appreciate the question, and Raul Labrador, one of our members, has a bill on religious liberty, and I know many of the ministerial associations and groups and organizations and the pro-marriage, pro-family organizations are supportive of this, and it would be a restatement in federal law of your constitutional right to have your religious freedom and religious So that is something that is it is a Defense of Marriage Act that we, it's a First Amendment Defense Act that we are doing, and I can't remember right now if we're voting on it next week or if they're going to vote on it in September. But that is coming. That vote is coming up fairly soon. As I'm out and about in August, we're getting ready to go on our August work period at the 1st of August, and we'll be in the district, and I'll be out and about in a lot of the communities between now and then. Okay, we've got a few minutes left, and I want to get through as many of the questions. We've got a very full queue, and as a reminder, you can go to the website and send me the question, and I will get to you on email if I don't get to your question and you are in the queue. Okay, Omar, your line is open.
Hi, good evening. What
Hi.
I wanted to know was there hasn't been a lot in the media about accomplishments of Congress since the Republicans have taken control.
Sure.
I'd like for you to highlight what you feel like the accomplishments have been.
Absolutely, and I appreciate that question. You are so right about that. We feel like we're working like crazy, and not everybody knows what all we're working on. Let me give you the first one that I think was a big one. We got a budget, and of course the president does not have to sign a budget. The House and the Senate came to a budget agreement. You will be happy to know it does not fund Obamacare, the budget agreement that we passed. And as we look to budget reconciliation, what we are doing is working toward funding some of the repeals of that program. What we also did was find a way to plus up military spending so that we have what is necessary to keep our nation safe, so that our men and women in uniform have what they need. All too often, what we are seeing is that, like at Fort Campbell, I have to go in and get the special provisions for our flying hours program. So the budget is an important document that we were able to get done. The National Defense Authorization Act is another one that we have gotten done and through both chambers. In the House, we passed a bill that many of you, just hundreds of you in our district, wrote in about. It was the 21st Century Cures Bill. It puts the emphasis on finding cures for rare diseases, chronic diseases, and that bill includes legislation that I authored, the Software Act, which deals with the mobile health or the M-Health apps. Those are just quickly right off the top of the list. Some of the things that we have done. We also passed the Pain-Capable Unborn Child Protection Act that was very important to our pro-life community, and we've got a list of other items that we are working on that are good government. Reducing the size of the federal government, reducing what the government spends. But you're right. The work that we do, there is not a lot of talk about that. We also were able to, in the House, pass a bill, an education bill that will allow states to opt out of Common Core. It ends 65 programs in the Department of Education, requires that individuals employed in those programs, those positions be terminated. It allows parents to opt students out of testing, and for these actions to be taken by your local school boards and for your state and localities not to be penalized when it comes time for those federal dollars to come down. So, those are all things that we have done. All right, Steve, your line is open.
Thank you, Congresswoman
Sure.
Blackburn. I appreciate you taking the call on what you do.
Sure, absolutely.
I have two concerns I'd like to mention. One of them is illegal immigration, primarily securing the border, and I think you've addressed that. It's just foremost in my mind, living in Arizona for all my life until moving to Tennessee 2 years ago, I can tell you that it is a big problem. It's not just Mexican nationals. In the city of Phoenix, a population of 5 million people, there are neighborhoods, one of which I grew up in, that the law enforcement agencies will not even go into because of gang violence, particularly Mexican and South American organized crime gangs that occupy and control those areas. So it is a big national security issue. I have friends who live on the border on ranches. It's not just Mexican nationals. It's from every nation, including the Middle East, and that to me is very key, as well as a complete rehaul of our immigration system. I think the best thing to do is enforce what's on the books, but
yes.
Anyway, that's a concern. And the second thing is more of my concern for I'll call it the health of the Republican Party. I think the Republican Party, particularly the leadership, has far strayed from what the Republican Party was intended to be. And, I think the difference between the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, frankly, is pretty much just the amount of time it's going to take to continue to have the government burgeon and intrude in our lives. So I encourage you and other conservatives in the Congress to convey that to the Republican leadership, because not just me, I know a lot of other people who are pretty well fed up with the Republican leadership. So I thank you for your giving me the opportunity to express.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And Steve, as you said, the national security issues and how that affects how illegal immigration plays into that. You're exactly right. And you mentioned living in Arizona. And, yes, it's imperative that we secure that border. Okay, Tim, your line is open. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
My question was the legislation that's going through right now, Kate's Law, the Sanctuary City bill is going through right now. They're fantastic. We're on the right path. Once that legislation gets to the White House, the Obama administration has said that they are going to veto it. What is your feeling as far as do we have any chance of overturning this imperial presidency and actually getting some of this legislation through?
Yeah, I think, and that's a great question, do we have a chance? And I think that the answer to that is yes, indeed we do, and here is why. People are outraged. It is not a partisan issue. It is something that the American people are absolutely outraged that these individuals come back across the border. And, I've had the CLEAR Act, which deals with the criminal illegal aliens and cutting the money to the sanctuary cities. I've had that bill since 2007. I file it every single Congress. It is H.R. 2964. And I think that one way everyone can help, when I send out my email newsletter on Fridays, send it to everybody in your address book, because we will be covering this in the newsletter that we send out tomorrow. And all the information is in there. The links to the bills are in there. And as I said, you've got Duncan Hunter and Matt Salmon and Trey Gowdy and Steve King and me, who have all got bills that are making up the legislation, kind of coming together and making up this legislation that is going to move forward. So absolutely send this. Encourage your friends in other congressional districts in other parts of the country to contact their member of Congress and tell them to support this, whether it is the Sanctuary City Bill or the CLEAR Act or the SAFE Act or Kate's Law. These provisions that will return power to the American people and require the federal government to deport these people and pay back local governments for the money that they spend on this. Okay, Ken, your line is open.
Yes, thank you for taking my call. My question is around the Iran nuclear deal, and it goes back to April with the passing of the Nuclear Agreement Review Act. And I don't understand, and I'm confused by, I guess, Republican leadership initiating and voting for this act which it now appears has given Obama the ability to just skate right over Congress and put this deal into place. And I would love to hear an explanation as to why the Republican Congress supported this.
Are you, by chance, talking about the Trade Promotion Authority?
I'm talking about the Iran Nuclear Agreement Review Act, which, it was talked about at length today in the Senate review sessions with the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. This was an act that Senator
Corker. Oh, you're talking
Corker.
about Senator Corker's.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. And yes, that is. I thought the way you were talking about the Trade Promotion Authority.
I'm sorry if I.
So yeah, right. Absolutely. The Trade Promotion Authority is something that it is a process that allows us to review trade bills as they come up. What you're talking about was the bill that Senator Corker had for Iran. I'm one of those. I would say do it as a treaty where you've got to have 2/3 to get it out of there rather than having to come back and get the 2/3 to override. With that said, now that the House has 60 days and can weigh in on this, I think there are the votes that will override this. I have looked at this deal with Iran. It is not a good deal, and it is not something that I support. Okay, last question. It is going to go to you, Les, and your line is open.
Thank you, Marsha, for taking my call.
Sure.
I'm gonna switch gears a little bit.
Okay.
My concern is when is Congress going to rein in the Supreme Court? They are not a lawmaking body, legislative body in your bailiwick, and I just think they've gone completely over what their authority is according to our Constitution.
Absolutely, I agree with you. And, it is just so frustrating. You've got 3 separate and independent branches of government, and then when it comes to things like Obamacare and the decision on gay marriage, you've got the Supreme Court sitting there trying to write law from the bench. This is why we're coming back around with legislative solutions on both of those fronts and making certain that we have things that we can put on the floor, call the vote, and, rein the court in. And this is one of the reasons we are hopeful we're going to have a new president that is going to be a conservative president when we get to 2016. I want to say thank you to
Marsha.
Yes, sir.
I was hoping that the Tennessee would challenge that law because of our state law, and say we're not going to follow it. We got a state law.
Right.
But they turned that down yesterday. That they weren't going to do that, but they should have challenged it, in my estimation.
I agree with you.
Okay.
And
Thank
I would have liked to have seen the state make that challenge also. All right. I thank you so very much. Again, on the 2 polls, Iran nuclear deal, 91% of you are opposed. 94% of you support empowering local law enforcement to apprehend and detain criminal illegal aliens. National security issues are definitely at the top of the heap with those of you in our district. Again, you've been on the phone with several thousand of your friends and neighbors from our 19 counties in the 7th Congressional District. I will be out working in your neighborhoods in August, so I hope you'll stop by and say hello. Thanks for joining me tonight. Good night.